Hi everyone, I'm Tracy, your host for A Channeler's Channel, and today's session is our Whitehawk's Wisdom, and we're channeling a reading on the fall equinox, which is really funny because my first video I ever did was the spring equinox, so that means I've been doing this for 6 months exactly. Yes, probably 6 months exactly today as this video is posted. And the spring equinox was one of my most highly viewed, Whitehawk's Wisdom, which I did deem topic of the week, but have changed. It was the most highly viewed one. So let's see if the fall equinox one gets highly viewed as well, because I think people are very kind of interests in when you call it the fall equinox instead of, the changing of the season and just fall or autumn. And so from my experience, the equinox energies they're dark energies. I don't look forward to them. It is the masculine, so the equinoxes are the masculine energy, and your solstices are your feminine energies. I say I don't like the equinox energies because I find it always brings up a lot of anger in people. It clears the way, literally, because it brings up cleansings in your system, right? And to do so, sometimes we get grumpy and sometimes we get argumentative, and that's got to come up, and it creates heated discussions or stuff like that. And I just find people can be kind of grumpy. If you've watched my last couple of weekly readings, I met up with people flipping me the bird a couple of weeks ago, and it was so funny because I was like, and then I got home and I went, oh, that's what it is. The equinox energies have arrived. They are upon us, and people are grumpy, right? So those are my take on the energies, and the cleansing is good, right? Fun sometimes, but it does release old stuck traumas and energies and heals you, right? Therefore, creating a new space for new energy and new stuff to come into your life. So if you look at it that way, I love the equinox energies. So if it does get it up and it does clear it and it does heal it, then new stuff will come into your life. And who doesn't love a new, more positive, because you've grown from the space you were, so it's going to grow with you, right? You're not going to attract the old energy of who you were. You're going to attract the new energy of where you were. And I guess the way I kind of use this, and this isn't to upset anybody, but if you married someone 20 years ago, if you were to pick a new mate today, it would not be the same type of mate, because unless of course you haven't evolved at all in 20 years, but and I suppose that's possible, kind of like the Joni meets Chachi syndrome, right? Like when they stopped dating and then they both started dating someone who looked a lot exactly like each other, who were exactly like each other. Maybe, but I hope not. I hope you've grown in 20 years, right? My point being that your mate would be very different than the mate you chose 20 years ago. Like I said, unless of course you haven't grown, and I guess that is very possible, very, very possible. So then what happens if you haven't grown? Then you will choose someone very much like your mate, I suppose. But that's very contradictory to what I just said, isn't it? Anyways, comment. See what. Maybe that gives you something to comment about. All right, enough of me blabbing on. Let's go get Whitehawk and see what he has to say about the fall equinox. Indeed, he says, the fall equinox. What can one say about the fall equinox that has not been said before? And when I say that, Tracy, I mean it in regards to the spring equinox, simply because your equinox energies don't really change much from the spring to the fall. An equinox is an equinox is an equinox, he says. So really, you have made a good point in stating that they are a cleansing energy, that they are a clearing energy. Therefore, they can be a very powerful and dislodging energy. And I just noticed that Jesus is here, and he's I'll check in and see what it is that he wants. And so as Whitehawk is delivering this reading, Jesus comes upon us where we are standing, performing this reading. And he comes, and it's really funny. So he's in his white robe, and there's brown there somewhere in an overlay. Can't see exactly. And his Jesus sandals and a robe. And so he sits down. He just sits down cross-legged, and he's come to listen. And someone else is calling me to listen too, I guess. Sorry about that interruption. Okay. Sorry, just par for the course and the kind of day I'm having today. So I'll jump back in with Whitehawk. We were given a reading on the fall equinox, and Jesus had just joined us. Indeed, he says. And so Jesus, he says, has come to join us to listen, he says, about the equinox energy, something that he has much wisdom, much experience with, he says. For if you recall, he says, in his crucifixion, indeed, he says, we could say it had a lot to do with the equinox energies. So everybody's kind of mulling that over, because that's quite surprising for him to have just said. And Jesus stands up and he says, "Fear not, little ones." He says, "So we are giving you a new piece of information. It is not a bad thing. It is not a weird thing. It will not change the landscape of the world that you live in, that you drive in today," he says. "But it is an interesting piece of information," he says. "Because I bet," he says, "if you were to look back historically at wars when they started," he says, "at terrorist attacks," he says, "when they've occurred, I believe that you will find that most of them happen around the equinox time." And some people are up in arms over that, like thinking that's just like freaking crazy, you know. And other people are kind of ingesting that, thinking, "Oh, okay, well, I'll go have a look, see if he's right or he's wrong." And I'm not really sure if I believe that, but hey, that's okay. You know, I'll listen. Because that's right, children. Go and discover for yourself, he says. But I think you will find that a lot of wars began during this time. You will see very shortly, my children. He says, and when we speak of equinox energies, it is not, as this little one, he says, likes to say, an exact science. It is not about on the day, or just before the day, or just after the day. He is about a few weeks before, and sometimes even a few weeks after, he says, the residual effects of the equinox last. And oftentimes things begin within this time frame, and indeed can carry on throughout after the energies have left, he says, because you have began something you can't stop. You must continue forthwith on it, he says. So this is a seed of information to keep in your mind, in your head, he says, as you move forward throughout your life, he says. For in fact, this is just a moment in time, he says, but if you start to do your to investigate, if he says, if you start to do your homework and look back at specific events, he says, I think you will find a lot of them occurred during equinox time. He says, and so I deliver unto you this speck of information to open your mind, to open your brain to how energy affects us all in this world. So do not be afraid, do not be dismayed by this newfound energy, information that we're delivering upon you. And remember, this is Jesus speaking. He says, go forward in faith, in hope, that we have given you a seed to help you move forward in your life, to understand life and how it works, and how the energies affect each and every one of us in this divine world we call Earth. Now go, children, ingest this new information, and then come back to me, he says, and tell me what you have found. Tell me, what were your percentages? Did you find most of these happen during the equinox? Did you find maybe a lot of these happen during eclipse time too, he says? For indeed you'll find that during eclipse times, those are dark energies as well. And he's kind of got a whimsical, mischievous smile on him going. He says, indeed, you will see. I am giving you an eye into the universe. God bless, children. And thank you for coming and listening. As always, we're always grateful to have you here with us. God bless. And he puts his hand on my back, on my shoulder. Me and Whitehawk and him are all kind of like in an arm. Well, he has, let's just say he has his arms around us. Yeah. God bless. Thank you. Thank you. So that is our interesting reading on the fall equinox. I think I'm going to go do some homework and see, you know, I can think of one specific terrorist, devastating, atrocious event, and of course that was September 11th. That certainly would have been the equinox times, for sure. So I'm going to go and do my homework and see if I can find any events that also occurred during this time frame. But I also know after the equinoxes, for me in my own personal life, that April, October are really good times in my life for good things to happen. So October is coming, so and not necessarily every year, right? But a lot of events when I went back, a lot of good things, getting jobs or getting married or various things like that, or getting engaged, you know, and not just those things, other things like evolving things in your life, moving you forward in your life, happened just after the equinox energies. So you have to have that dark clearing to get that new energy to move you forward. So a little food for thought. Go do your homework, and we'll chat later more about it. All right, so Mondays are a weekly reading. We'll see you then. I'm Tracy for a Chandler's Channel. God bless.